And now for your listening pleasure, here's Polizzi and Rose, covering the week of media, marketing, and digital content news. This Old Marketing. Take it away, boys.
Well, hello, my friends. This is Robert Rose, and welcome to episode number 391, a special episode of This Old Marketing for Friday, September 1st. That's right, we're into September now, everybody, 2023. And with me, as always, as he always is, well, my pal, my colleague, and a guy who I'm sure has not seen Ahsoka yet, Mr. Joe Polizzi.
No, I haven't seen Ahsoka.
I know.
You just talked to you about it. I've not seen it. I do like Star Wars a lot.
Yeah.
But no, and I would
not
watch
as much
it.
as our friend JK. You don't like Star Wars as much as it.
No, not as much.
And by the way, I'm just going to say for the record, Star Trek better than Star Wars. Just going to say it because, by the way, I am wearing my Star Trek shirt today. So those
then nobody knows what it is.
If you know, you know. I'm just going to say it's
so you'll have to. Right? So those listening, you'll have to watch it, and so you can look at it and say, I don't know what that is either.
And I'll put it this way: anybody who can tell me that, and well, they're going to Google it is what they're going to do. But if you don't Google it, if you can tell me, I'll send you a book. I'll send you a new copy of my book.
You send you a copy of Epic Content Marketing. How about that?
No. For F's sake.
Yes. Or Content Inc. would be a nice book.
Okay. So that brings up a great point.
Oh, it does it?
It totally reminds me of a story. So I walk into, so this is 2017, I think.
Okay.
And I get hired by this company that I know very well. They're former clients, and they say, we want you to come in and do a keynote to our marketing group. We're having this global marketing get together, and we want you to come in and do a keynote. And I'm like, wow, that's fantastic. I'd love to do that. So and it's in LA, by the way, it's in LA. So it's not like I have to travel anywhere, and it's not like they don't know who I am and all that. So I drive down there into the office. I walk into the room. It's a big room, like they normally have, 70 or 80 people in there. And on everybody's desk is a copy of Epic Content Marketing. And I'm like, really? This really? I mean,
that quite possibly could have been the best day of my life when you told me that happened.
Yeah.
No, that's very unfortunate. But it just shows how you and I are, like it or not, we're sort of tied at the hip. Because basically what happens is that when you go somewhere, sometimes my book ends up where you are. And when I go somewhere, I get credited with the smart things that you say. Okay. So it's sort of a win-win for me.
Yeah,
all the way around.
That I'm not sure how that works out well for me, but yeah,
it doesn't. This is all about me, as it normally is, as my wife would say. It's all about you. I'm like, who does this help? It helps this guy right here. And that's what's important.
As was evidenced, by the way, first of all, thanks to all of you. So that we have a special episode this week because we're going to answer questions that came in through LinkedIn. So Joe goes out and posts up, hey, everybody, Robert and I are going to do a special episode of This Old Marketing and would love to, would love to get your questions. And every one of them was like, oh, Joe, you're so amazing.
Did you stop it? That only is partially true.
Yeah. And by the way, the questions are still rolling in, which is great.
Yeah.
I go post the same
that
thing
was
and
awesome. We'll have to do another. Yeah. Because when there'll be another week here that I can't make, and we'll just do another. We'll see how this one goes. This is like an office hours, right?
I love the questions. The questions that came in and the ones we picked are so much fun. They're really, really fun.
Thank you for everyone. We'll do a little shout out to everyone who had some questions because we can't get to all of them because they were so very good. But
yeah. So as we record this, we should mention that you're away. You're off in Nantucket.
I'm on the white sandy beach of Nantucket, or I am on my bike hauling it to one of the coasts. I don't know. I've never been there before, but I've done a lot of research, and I'm very much looking forward to it.
Oh, Nantucket is beautiful, and especially this time of year, Nantucket is amazing because
they said it was a good time. It's right before Labor Day, and this is sort of the last week of summer for Nantucket. Well, now it's
so you're gonna have the best time, and you will be, or as we record this, you're having the best time. I should say
I'm having a great time. We're our little cottage that we have is like 2 blocks away from the brewery.
It's so Martha Stewart. I mean, you are going to be Martha Stewarted up.
I'm at a cottage. Yeah, the fact that I'm cottaging.
It will be blue. I guarantee you the cottage.
You think it's going to be blue?
I think it's going to be blue. There will be hints of blue everywhere.
I'll take a picture and I'll send it to you. And if it's a blue,
there will be lots of blue or whatever, lots of floral prints. Yeah, blue and floral prints is
whatever the cottage is. Just as a side note, I did look, and I can be cheap. I like spending money on experiences, but sometimes I can be cheap.
Sometimes.
Okay, not all. I'm pretty good most of the time. Like I like a good party. We'll I like a good happy hour. I'll pick up the tab, those kind of things. But you do as well. You do that all the time too. But the Nantucket Hotel is the hotel that my wife reads books by Elin Hillenbrand, and it's always at the Nantucket Hotel, I guess. I looked to see what the pricing was, because I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be great? My wife and I could stay at the hotel, and it ranged between $1,300 and $1,500 a night.
Yeah,
to stay at that hotel, and I'm like, does every night come with $1,000? Like that's like where.
Yes.
So we have a wonderful Airbnb cottage that's just going to be tremendous. That's
nice. Yes. Nantucket generally is not cheap. I mean, let's just be honest. Nantucket is not.
I'm not expecting anything to be.
It's not Atlantic City. Let me put it that way, right? It's not. You're not.
I like Atlantic City though. Those are my people.
Experience.
It's completely different. Like I like the bars in Atlantic City because it's like, they may or may not have been swept recently. And then there's always happy hours going
and they may or may not have cleaned up the blood from the last knife fight that happened.
But that gives Atlantic City its charm.
It's a patina. Yeah, it's a definite patina to the city. Yeah.
You haven't been to Atlantic City in years?
Not in years. No, I have not been in years. The last time I was there was for a speech, and it was I was at one of the casinos there, and I walked on the boardwalk. And I was actually, I want to say it was after Hurricane Sandy. And so it was quiet basically. Yeah. And it was, they were still doing a lot of rebuilding. So I remember that a lot of the boardwalk was new because they had to replace a lot of it. So
we went 2 years ago. It was right in the middle of COVID. And they were still doing a lot of building, but if you get off of the commercial section and you keep walking down the boardwalk, those places are beautiful. The houses on that boardwalk are just tremendous. So
sure, those are the old classics. Yeah,
they're gorgeous. So don't be putting down Atlantic City. You just don't like anything New Jersey. That's your problem.
Well, and the funny thing is that I used to go to New Jersey every single year. My wife grew up on the Jersey Shore every summer, and so her family had a house there on the Jersey Shore in Long Beach Island. For those of you who are in New Jersey and know such things, and so we would go to Long Beach Island and hang out and in fact it was traditionally this week. We would go the week before Labor Day. We would go, and so wow. And LBI is great. I still have tons of T-shirts with LBI on them, and I loved the Jersey Shore in that. You get some good crab, get some lobster, get the whole thing, right? Yeah,
just like Nantucket. Sounds exactly the same.
Well, Nantucket's going to be fantastic. You're going to have the best time. All right.
To our questions. What's the first question?
Yeah, so let's get to it. So the way we're going to do this, by the way, is this typical way that we do questions. Is that we've got 5 questions that we picked from the just myriad questions that you sent over.
We had over 40 questions.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah.
We tried to sort of split them up. There are no football questions. There were many football questions in the actual
but you did
list.
Not.
We did not pick any. So those of you who don't like football will be pleased about that. We are going to
non-football This Old Marketing. It's a first. Right. It's a first.
And so we'll talk a lot about marketing. We'll talk a lot about business. We'll talk a lot about what we're thinking about. And so let's get to question number one, which comes to us courtesy of Jim McLeod. Jim, wonderful friend and family of the show for quite some time. The question that Jim asks is, which marketing trend died out much faster than either of you expected? Was it voice? Was it NFTs? And kind of as a follow-up, so we can sort of fit two questions into one here, which one that died might actually rise again? And he used the QR code as a good example of that. So,
well, that's something.
You take it. You take the first, and I'll take second.
Okay. I have this theory in the future that we won't be touching things. And because we won't be touching things, I believe that voice search is one of those things that's just going to go through the roof. I think that most search will, like, we're going to be using our voices for everything, and you're not going to touch anything. So there's that.
Yeah.
So I think voice search is the second part of Jim's question that is going to happen. Web3 was probably the one where, wow, I did not necessarily see that de-escalating so quickly. But as we talked about in the last episode, I believe the future of Web3 is really, really still strong. I think that the problem is everybody got infatuated with the financialization behind it and the tokens and making money and all that. And it just tainted the whole industry. And so I think that is going to, I don't know when. Do I call it in 24 or 25 or 26? I think as long as it just stays behind the scenes for quite a while, we're seeing a lot of innovation happen in the Web3 area, a lot about tokenization. It's going to be really, really worthwhile for creators and for marketers. We just won't see it for a while. So I'm bullish on both of what Jim mentions with Web3 and with voice in the very near future. How about you, sir?
You know, I'm going to give two answers to this. One is the more consumer side, which is going to be the same answer that you gave. And then I'm going to give a little bit more of an inside baseball kind of answer here. So just to cover off the first one first, the Web3 is definitely, I mean, I did not expect Web3 and specifically Web3, the blockchain NFT stuff. That, you know, I didn't expect it to die out at all, to be honest. I thought it was going to be.
We were both quite bullish. And
yeah, on the, you know, I was less bullish. I mean, famously, you know, on our show, we used to have the fun debates about, you know, this stuff. I was much less bullish on the NFT parts of it, the sort of overpriced JPEGs part than the blockchain and the sort of functionality behind blockchain. And arguably, it's still going on in the background. It's just the hype has really, really died off, and it died so quickly. The more inside baseball one that I would point to is CDPs, customer data platforms. So there was a moment, they had their moment about, I don't know, 10 years, not 10 years ago, maybe 7 years ago. And CDPs were going to become the new thing. And if you blinked, you might have missed it because everybody was talking about how we need to manage all these digital experiences and we need marketing automation and all those kinds of things. And one of the things that we were hearing so much from clients, and by the way, started to get developed by not only Salesforce and Adobe and Microsoft and all of this, you know, all of the big companies had this, and there were tons of startups in the space that got tons of initial press, were these customer data platforms, which were sort of a cross between CRM and marketing automation. It was basically, how do you create a singular, and what I loved about it was sort of an audience database that got attributes of things, you know, so from the first time you met this person, this new customer on your website, through to moving it over to your CRM system, it was sort of a single way to get that 360-degree view of your customer. And for about 10 minutes, they were the cat's meow. I mean, it was everybody was talking about CDPs and how they were going to really upend the idea of digital marketing. And it was so tied to content marketing, which is why we covered it so heavily. And then it just like disappeared overnight. And it started to come back a little bit with Salesforce talking about this late last year. But then, of course, AI came and just sort of took everything out. CDPs are still there, and I think this is getting to the second part of Jim's question. I think they may come back again. What we're starting to see are a combination of new tech that's coming up that's really built around managing audiences, not just marketing automation and email, and not just marketing automation and landing pages and personalization, but sort of managing audiences full stop across different digital platforms. And I think that might have an opportunity to come back.
I think, to your point, we've always had a problem in marketing because everything is run by a different piece of software and they can never talk to each other. But I think with the rise of APIs and the ability now for a lot of this software to talk to each other, you can actually see a unified view of the customer. I mean, you
can, but nobody does. But yes, you can. I mean, it's
nobody does. Possible. But isn't that what you're sort of the goal of what you're talking about?
It was basically a platform. The way the architecture looked was, and not to get too geeky into this, but the way the architecture looked was, you had a common. So one of the biggest problems, and this is a big problem still in 2023, that marketing departments have is that the audience data, and I won't even say customer data, let's just call it audience data, which includes leads, opportunities, visitors, first-party data on blog subscribers, first-party data on email subscribers. They're all sitting in silos, right, for the most part. Mm-hmm. Their email addresses are all in the email marketing system or the marketing automation system. You've got customer data in the CRM system. You've got some level of blog subscribers and some other database, and they're all basically siloed off from one another. And so if you're trying to get any sort of 360-degree view of that one customer and give them attributes like lead, opportunity, and so on and so forth, it's just hard. It's just a hard, big, difficult project. And so CDPs were meant to kind of alleviate that and provide sort of a single pool where you could have audiences to do different things, personalize your website content, personalize emails, sort of a singular audience platform that many of those other platforms that are content oriented would use to do things like send you a personalized email or send you a thing without it being siloed. And so one of the reasons that it may have never caught on or declined so quickly is because marketers are just loath to put yet another tool in over the top of some of these things that already have. It's like, the CIO then says, well, can't we already do that? Like, to your point, can't we already do that with like Salesforce and Adobe and our marketing automation system? And people go, well, yeah, you could, and then it gets really difficult.
Yeah, well, it's like most software where you only use like 8% of any of the features of any software.
Exactly.
That's where
I predicted for a long time that there would be a content marketing platform that would handle some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of new technologies that are out there sort of purporting themselves to do this, but it could rise again.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Good start.
Right.
Good start. Nice job.
There we go.
Well done.
We're already off to the races here. All right. So here's the second question.
Two. Yes.
From Tom. Here's the funny thing, Tom. You've sort of done yourself in with your LinkedIn profile. So Tom Jurizmesuk, or Smith, as he prefers to be called, according to his LinkedIn. So Tom Smith. There you go, Tom. Asks a wonderful question. Which company is doing this best today? And by this, he posted the CMI classic.
I should probably bring that up. Yeah.
You could probably bring that up.
I have to find it. So go ahead.
For those of you who are maybe new listeners, you'll remember that Joe patterned the structure of CMI off of the Disney basically infographic that showed how all revenue paths led to the center. And for CMI, it was, of course, the big event.
There it is.
And there you go. And then so you've got the blog there and the content at the center, and then you've got events and publications and training and all the kinds of things that we did. This sort of multiple lines of revenue, multiple businesses, a platform business, if you will, in the age of content marketing, the sort of mixing of media and products and services. This is this that Tom is referencing in his question, and he wants to know which company or organization that we think is doing this best today. So what's your answer to that?
Well, my I spend most of my time in the creator universe, so I'm a big fan of Jimmy Donaldson, who is AKA Mr. Beast. And what Mr. Beast has done by really focusing on, and really this model works when we talked about, because the CMI blog was always at the center. That was the ongoing, consistent, valuable, relevant information that we would send out to our customers on a regular basis. The same thing holds true for Jimmy. That's YouTube. That's Jimmy's YouTube channel and his e-newsletter and his contact. And then the product launches like Feastables, which is one of the fastest growing product areas on the planet right now. They just got into Walmart and all these things. I love what Jimmy has done. And of course, then you have all these offshoots of, here's what I'm doing on Twitter, and here's what I'm doing on Instagram and all these, and TikTok and all these other socials, but still has YouTube at the center. Another amazing creator that I want to, that I think fits into this is Jay Clouse. And Jay spoke last couple of years at Creator Economy Expo, tremendous, has his newsletter in the middle. That's sort of the glue that brings everything together. But if you look at ongoing, what he's done with online training, his membership, his YouTube channel, which is growing, he's consistent on Twitter with threads, and every day has a LinkedIn post, and really has built a model that's very similar to the one we did at Content Marketing Institute. And that's why his revenue has gone from almost nothing to, I think he's going to do 600,000 or 700,000 this year as just a content entrepreneur. It'll be $1 million business next year. It's really amazing. But I think that holding to that, and the key to really making this thing work is you have to have something where you go deep into the blog for CMI or Mr. Beast and YouTube. What's the thing that is yours, that is your main place that fans can connect with you? And then you diversify in a bunch of different ways, but it always goes back to that one thing. Now, you would know better. Do you have an example from the corporate world that you would say this is the content marketing approach that's really working for somebody?
Oh, yes. I have 3 examples.
Oh, great.
So number one, I would point to Amazon, right? So, I mean, at the tectonic scale, right? Amazon and Microsoft are at the tectonic scale of this, right? The way that they're diversifying their business. You've got, Amazon has truly become not only a media company, but as well as sort of multiple ways, from B2B to B2C to, all the ways that they sort of combine all of their different platform services and products and have everything come back to, to really, how do you buy things online, right?
Yeah.
And so it's that sort of is the quintessential. Then you got Microsoft, which of course has been diversifying for years, and with their latest acquisition of Activision and that whole part of the thing, they've got everything from entertainment to GitHub to LinkedIn to so many different properties. But sort of that, it becomes a little hard to identify with that because it's so big. Mm-hmm. So I would say 2 at the smaller end of the scale. One, which I know is tiresome at this point because we use it so often as an example, but Cleveland Clinic, I mean, it just continues to kill it, just to crush it when it comes to launching new media properties that are highly profitable, that make money. They are truly, I mean, we talked about them in Killing Marketing. They are truly a marketing department that is a profitable part of the business. I mean, that you just can't say it any other way. Their marketing department is a profit center, and it makes money. And they do so in multiple ways, primarily through advertising, but they also syndicate content, and they do other things as well.
They do There's a consulting arm as part of that, training part right. of that.
I mean, it's crazy the amount
custom content they do custom editorial for other companies. I mean, and this is a hospital, folks.
That's right.
So think about that. That's a fantastic example.
Yeah. So that's that. And then the one other that I would point to that is totally under the radar, and they're my major case study in my new book, which is the Multiple Sclerosis Society. I happen to know the CMO there, and he's such a smart guy. He's completely upended their business. Because, and of course, COVID did a huge, a huge disruption on that. And the way that they used to be organized was by chapters, right? So that you had multiple chapters all across the U.S. And of course, the way that they get their donations are mostly runs, right? Marathons and fun runs and all sorts of things. Run for muscular sclerosis. And so he basically reorganized all of marketing around content and media, and basically centralized it where the individual chapters become individual media creators and content creators, and and basically enabling their people to become storytellers rather than sort of becoming the story. In other words, what he did was he said, hey, listen, we can't have this big fun run event, but you can run and you can tell us your story. And you can set up your own thing, and enabling them to tell their stories and provide for a centralized way to do that, and basically centering everything on content marketing was how he sort of changed the entire business model of how they go to, basically their entire business model is now media and telling that story. And the thing that just gives me chills every time he tells me, he said the whole purpose behind it was, he got this, and he talked to his leadership about this and talked to the board about this. And he said, the whole point of our organization should be to put ourselves out of business, right? He said, the whole point of this is to, at some point, not be needed. And so he said, their whole mission now is to kill the need for the nonprofit organization. And I love that. It's a fantastic.
That's a great thought. Yeah. That is actually should be the goal of almost every nonprofit.
Yeah, to be not be needed. Yeah,
the cancer societies and us at Orange Effect Foundation. Hopefully, there will be a day where we won't have to there will be funding for kids who need speech therapy anywhere you are in the world. Well, right now that's not I love that.
That's right.
I didn't know that example. I'm looking forward to reading that in your book.
Thank you. It's going to be fantastic. He's such a smart guy. He's definitely one of my favorites. It's such an inspiration to talk to him.
All right, that's good. We got some small examples there, some larger ones. I think that we covered that one correctly.
Yeah, there you go. All right, let's get to our third question here. The third question on our list comes to us courtesy of Gina Ballerin. Am I pronouncing Gina's last name correctly? Ballerin?
Hi, Gina. Yep, very good.
Ballerin? I'm going to say Ballerin. I don't know. Gina will correct me.
Gina, Ballerin. Would you correct? I think it's Ballerin.
Like in ballerina,
you think it's,
right?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Other than AI, Gina asks, what is the next big thing in content marketing, says Joe Pulizzi?
Well, I'm not going to use my old standby of I think enterprises will start buying media companies and creators, which I've said for the last 10 years. And it's starting to happen. Yeah, that's not the next big thing because we've been talking about that. I really think the next big thing in content marketing is that marketing departments will create creators. I really believe that's, and basically you just shared that example of how do we take the people around us and raise them up and give them the support and the tools they need so that they can build their own audiences. And I think that's the key for content marketing in the future. I think instead of how do we corporately build this newsletter, how do we corporately build this TikTok, we're going to say, here's an audience we're going after. Is there somebody in our organization or somebody that we need to bring in that will be the spokesperson that will put all of our efforts behind this person to build this audience? And a lot of people don't like that because it's risky, because they're saying, oh, we're moving it over to this individual and there's risks that go along with that. But I really believe more and more, and we're seeing this in the creator economy, that people want to connect with individuals and not companies. So let's just not fight that battle anymore. Let's just go ahead and look at our content marketing department and say, how are we training? How are we growing? How are we looking out for these people and finding them inside, outside, in the ecosystems around where our customers are at, and bring these creators in and help them be successful? And if we do that properly, that's going to help the brand. So that's what I think is the next thing for the next 5 years in enterprises. So
I think that's a good, I think that's right on the money. And it's interesting because it's hard to not relate something back to how big the disruption in AI really is, and sort of, look separately from it. You know what I mean? Because I think most of the bigger evolutions in the practice of content marketing are coming out of the disruption that is, generative AI for sure.
Yeah.
However, having said that, I will answer the question, which is, I think, and this is again something I talk about a little bit in the book, which is, I believe what we're actually seeing is, so the trend sort of at the symptomatic level that I see is that content marketers are no longer considered a separate piece of marketing, right? So in so many instances, what we see are the content teams that got built 10 years ago, 7 years ago, 5 years ago, that were typically a ragtag bunch of journalists that got put over in a corner and said, make cool stuff for the company.
Skunkworks operation, if you will.
Exactly. Great way to put it. Where, their job was to build a cool blog or build some resource centers or build a content hub for the organization and have that rank for SEO and whatever the business goals may have been for that. Well, more and more what we're seeing is that that's merging into, because they're great writers, they're great creators, they're great content people, and so they're getting asked to do more, which is mostly on the marketing content side. Right. So in other words, those great creators are now getting asked to do brochures and web copy and, abstracts for webinars and all those kinds of things. And so that relates obviously to AI and the sort of merging there. But the bigger story, I think, is, and I may be going out a bit on a limb here, is the way I used to say it was, oh yes, content marketing will simply become part of marketing, right? At some point, you and I used to talk about this all the time.
Sure.
I think it's now actually the reverse. I think it's actually marketing is becoming content marketing. In other words, the entire function of marketing is now getting centered on the idea of creating valuable content experiences for.
Isn't that something? No, I totally agree with that. I think that you are right. We had it wrong all the time, where everything is becoming, how do we build audiences and relationships? And we do that through valuable, relevant content experiences.
Yeah, and marketing is basically becoming a media operation. Like how, building your marketing department these days, full stop, is about how do I build a owned media organization that can help create paid, owned, and shared media. And all of that is centered on the idea that media should be valuable as an experience to customers. And more, the measurement of that is changing. In other words, if basically the classic old core measurement of marketing was reach and frequency, like how many people are we reaching with how much frequency, and how much do we need to do that to get spend and spend versus revenue in the right organizational, metric, basically the right, fraction. Well, I think it's changing now where multiple ways of measuring marketing are coming in to measure things like the value of first-party data, the value of trust, the value of subscription, the value of all those things, in addition to all of the classic marketing. And I think that process is becoming one. So I think basically marketing is becoming content marketing.
Yeah, that's a great line. I could see that. That's your next keynote. I mean, that you could really, maybe you already did. I mean, maybe
it's going to be what I talk. It's going to be what I talk about at Content Marketing World for sure. It's going to be the center of where I am, because it's the thesis of the book, really, basically, more than anything else. It's like if you really want to understand the strategy of content marketing, you have to understand the strategy of how a business manages its content across the board, right? Because those two things are now one.
And the easiest on-ramp for customers today is to have a relationship with them first in some way. And the easiest way to have a relationship with them in some way is to have them subscribe to something that's relevant to them and they engage with on a regular basis.
That's right. That's exactly right.
There you go. Perfect. Love it.
All right.
You nailed that one.
Yeah.
I give you A+ in a check on that.
14 Quatloos. Another Star Trek reference.
Oh my gosh! See, now you're taking it off. When did This Old Marketing jump the shark? It was episode 391 when Robert added the obscure Star Trek reference.
That's my next trivia question for everybody out there to respond to. The 100 Quatloos. What is the episode that came from? The episode title that came from?
Is that The Next Generation?
No, that'll be the original series. Always the original series. Yeah.
I don't know these things. Quatloos, I didn't really get into it until The Next Generation.
Yeah, there we go.
And then I went back and watched the movies, and then I went back and watched the 60s originals.
It's fantastic. So, I watch them every night. It bugs my wife to no end. She always she knows now that like it's the sort of the last 20 minutes before we like head off to bed and stuff like that and go read and stuff like that, because there's no use in starting a new show and blah blah blah, and we're going to go to bed and all that. And so she'll literally, it's on, so she'll like stick it on as we're like cleaning up and getting ready for bed and stuff like that. And she always asks the same thing. She always sees the whatever episode it is, and she goes, "Is this a classic or not a classic?" And I always look at it, and I can within seconds I know which episode it is, and I'm like, it's either this is totally a classic, and I'll sit up and stay up and watch it, or it's not a classic. I'll turn it off. Yeah. Welcome to the Rose household.
You've said basically enough about your life in that 3 minutes.
That's
anyone would want to know. I think
this is my life.
All right. So you got that. We're at question 4 of 5. All right.
We're question 4 of 5. Here we go. Yes. So this one comes from Jason Schemmel. And so Jason has a question. He said, if you had to start over from scratch, no network, no connections, no favors, etc., and you had $10,000 to build a cash flow positive business, making 6 figures within 1 year's time, what would you do and how would you do it? Yeah, nice try, Jason. You're trying to get us to build your business for you. You got something on your mind, Jason?
So, Jason, yes. So there's a lot of ways that you could build your content business. If you are trying to get to significant revenue as quickly as possible, my recommendation would be to go to the B2B angle, and you target a very obscure niche section of the business environment. So these are business executives that have some kind of pain point. Create whatever vehicle, probably via LinkedIn and probably via video. You do something regular on that channel, build your audience, build your newsletter on LinkedIn itself, and you open a consultancy. I mean, if you want your 5-figure, your 6-figure deals that can come quickly from 1 or 2 customers to do.
Yep.
So that's where, when I left Penton Media in 2007 and was launching what ultimately became Content Marketing Institute, I had bills to pay and things. So what did I do? I naturally had a little bit of my time associated to consulting, and I had 4 or 5 consulting deals. That's actually, Robert and I were talking about this earlier today, where there's a project with PTC that came in that we first started working together on, and that was a significant project for both of us. And I didn't like consulting and never have, and brought you in on that, but and you were much better at consulting than I was, because you actually listened to the customers, and I never did. But that was initially how I got my start, and the business, and almost all the revenue and profit of the business came from consulting. So that's what I would do. I would go B2B. I would absolutely build your audience through some vehicle. I'd probably use a LinkedIn video model, and then tie that into some kind of newsletter that you would send on LinkedIn and probably on your own proprietary, whether that's ConvertKit or Beehive or Substack or whatever the case is. And I would go that direction, and then target that from a consulting, and probably have a book that would come out as part of that, so that you have that credible thing, like you are the author of this thing that and a leading expert in this thing. Very similar. That's Robert, that's your model. You became a thought leader, leading expert in content marketing, and built the advisory business around that, and have done very well for yourself. And that would be my recommendation.
That's it. So. Yeah. It's 100%. That's the answer. I'm going to just yes and that by adding one thing, which is, Yes, if with all the parameters, Jason, that you put out there, right? Cash flow positive, making 6 figures a year within 1 year's time, no network, no connections, no favors, which is, you're really starting from scratch at that point. I would suggest, so one of the big questions is, well, how do you spend the 10K, right? How do you spend that 10K? Certainly, writing a book is key there. Yep. Writing something that can become your major thought leadership calling card is going to be critical there. Second is going to be getting you out and speaking and talking. Yep. So a lot of that 10K is going to be in travel to get to conferences, to be able to get yourself out. The key on all of that is Joe is exactly right with you need to create your what I always call your sphere of influence, right? Your website, your LinkedIn profiles, your blog, your book, your owned media properties, basically. But you also have to get out because nobody knows you, right? No, you have no network, no connections, no favors, et cetera. So you've also got to get out there. You've got to get out on other people's property. So you need to write for other whatever niche you're going to fill, find those platforms and write for them, speak at them, get on their podcasts, get on there. You have to create some noise. And the only way you're going to create noise is if you get out on all those platforms where there are audiences already and start to establish yourself as someone who can be trustworthy in this space and be hired in this space. So you have to build literally a thought leadership practice, and you have to claim and demand it. Like whatever niche you're in, you have to say, this is what I have a point of view on the world on. This is the way I build it. This is the way I think about it. This is the way it's good. This is the way value that I provide. You have to provide that whole thing, and it's going to be a ton of work because you don't have much money to spend on anything, and you've only got a year to do it. So you're going to be spending a lot of time trying to get out to the rest of the world to build in, to Joe's point, literally 5 or 6 companies who can spend, a meaningful amount of money on consulting to build you into a cash flow positive business in that year.
The events, I'm glad you brought that up, because I remember in 06 and 07 and 08, the number of times I would go to San Francisco or Denver or New York to go to some conference and try to get some kind of airtime, or even just to be around people.
Oh yeah.
And to talk to them and network. And we had no money at that time. I was walking around New York to make it to the next meeting, to go to this thing, to meet this person for coffee, to do whatever. I'm sending emails. Hey, would you get together? I'm in your name. I would go to events. There were a couple events that I would go to just to meet one person.
Right.
And I would send them a note ahead of time and say, hey, we're going to be at the same conference. I don't have a ticket yet. Hey, can I go ahead and meet you for a cup of coffee? And those things would work out. And a lot of those worked out really well over the years.
I'll give you an example of that. There was a Web 2.0 conference held in Chicago, and I saw that you were speaking at it, and I pulled a hook and a crook and everything I could to get a speaking slot at that conference so that I could stalk you and get to meet you. And that's where all this.
Believe that. I'm like, who the heck is talking about content marketing? Nobody but me. Right. Like, there he is. Yeah. We were fast friends right away. That's super fun.
That's right. Yeah. We both had the Southwest Airlines as our examples, and it was so funny. Our presentations were so similar.
It's so good. But yeah, Jason, it's a great question. And again, consulting takes a lot of time and energy. So that takes away from your creator business too. So in a lot of cases, you don't want to force that so quickly. You want to use it for additional revenue, but you don't want it to have all your time. But if you want to be profitable right away, absolutely, that's your best way to go.
Yeah. By the way, that's not a bulletproof business either, right? So, and let me tell you from also personal, experience that it's the right answer for you, the way your question is phrased, but it's not necessarily if you had, either more network or more connections or more favors or or you didn't need to make it within the next year, how I might answer that question. Right. So it's the right answer to your question, but it's necessarily you want to think about other things, right? You want to think about other lines of revenue just to
diversify as quickly. Yeah. I mean, exactly. Basically, if you look at a content entrepreneur, they have between 4 and 7 different ways to monetize. But the number one way, more than 50% of content creators out there monetize through consulting. That is the number one way. Number 2 is books.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot. So when you have your book, you can generate revenues from that as well.
Kind of. Yeah. Kind of.
Well, it depends on.
It'll be enough for a pizza. Yeah, it'll be enough for a good pizza.
It really depends on how you set it up.
Yeah, true. So true. Fair enough. That's a fair point.
I'm starting to, as I start to learn more about. It's interesting as I've learned more about Lulu. As I've learned more about book publishing, I would have done some things different. I would have done it so I would use Amazon for discovery, and I would use my own website for my own audience so that I could actually generate revenue and profit from books.
If only there was a company that could help you turn your book into an owned media property where you could sell it direct and sort of be that one company that could help you. If only there was a company that could do that. I wonder who that might be.
Yes. By the way, what Robert's talking to is weird. That's what the tilt is transforming into.
Yes.
As we work with Lulu on this. So to help creators get their books out.
It's a little bit like the Transformers too. It's a little bit like,
we're Optimus Prime.
Optimus Prime,
Bumblebee.
Hello, I'm from Lulu. All right.
So good.
Okay.
Right. Last one.
The last question, is this also from Jason, or is there?
I think it is also from Jason. I think that you double dipped on the Jason Schemmel.
I did. Well, I really love this as the last question, which is one of the reasons I picked it, because I really love this question, actually. It might be my favorite question of all of them, but the last question that we'll take here is, if you weren't on your own, and this goes for both of us, which business would you want to go work for and why? And I love that because I haven't had a job from working with a company really since 2007, 2008.
Yeah, both of us, 2007. Yeah. That's when we both started our business.
Yeah. So
and great decision on both our parts because we're on. Yeah, we can't.
So it's a different marketplace right now than when you and I were last employed. So, but I'm curious, and I want to make it not businesses of old. I want to make it like, what company today would you want to go work for and why?
So, first of all, Jason, I shudder at this question because if I actually have to work for somebody, I don't think I could do it. My presentation, as you know, Robert, we were talking about my presentation in Content Marketing World is if you, as your marketer, and you decide you want to not work for somebody anymore, here's the steps that you need to take to do that. So I'm a big believer in moving from corporate world to an entrepreneur. But a lot of people aren't. Anyways, that said, it depends on how I'm feeling. I'm going to give you 3 answers to this. One is if I thought where was with my skill set, where I would have a really good opportunity knowing what's going on, I would become an IP attorney because I think the amount of opportunities, I think IP attorneys are just going to have a field day over the next 5 to 10 years with all the stuff going on.
I had no quatloos on that.
So but that's where I would say that's opportunity. Go ahead and do that. I don't know if I'd really want to. If I really want to, there's the 2 that I really want to do. One, I would like to run a major sports organization like the Cleveland Browns and Cleveland Guardians. Like I would want to work in the front office, and that's been a forever thing. I was planning on going into sports marketing, like that was going to be my thing. So I always wanted to be part of that. So I love sports, and I love to be part of that atmosphere. When I did 3 or 4 months with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I absolutely loved it until I found out what they made, and then I went on to find another job.
It is, right.
So there's that. Where I think I really could do a lot of good, and it would be something I'm passionate about. I would want to work for some of the Cleveland organizations to help bring more events into Cleveland, Ohio. I think I'd be really good at that. I think I would have a lot of fun. I go to a lot of events already, and I see how they're done. Cleveland has a very unique set of things that they bring to the table from a mid-sized city, and I would want to go out there and help bring those those events into my favorite city, Cleveland, Ohio.
There it is.
Yeah. So those are three. I don't know if that surprises you.
The IP attorney thing really surprises me. That's just fascinating. Have you always wanted to be a lawyer, or did you want to be a lawyer?
No, not at all. Okay. But the reason why I say that is because if I'm looking right now at where the opportunities are and something I could do, I absolutely think that would be. I mean, in just our industry, the opportunities are. I can't imagine how many opportunities there are for IP attorneys. But there's of course a lot of IP attorneys now because of this. But it would be an interesting place to go forward with. But anyway, but I probably would then get tired of it because I like to be around people.
Yeah,
that's where I would like to go to other events. I'd like to talk to people. I'd like to and that's why I love being, part of the front office at a sports organization, because there's always something going on. There's always different ways, like what Jesse Cole has done with the Savannah Bananas. I just think, outside of the fact that I don't think I'd have that much energy, but what he has done and going from zero to building $1 billion franchise is unbelievable.
Yeah,
it's really incredible. So I work for Jesse.
Yeah,
I'd get in a banana suit. Why not? If we would allow an orange banana, I'd probably do that.
I love that. Yeah,
okay. What do you got?
That would be very funny. Okay, well, so I have 3 answers, and I know it's a little bit of cheating, but the reason for my 3 answers is because I'm going to choose one if it was about money. Because unlike some people on this podcast, I'm not independently able to sort of make free choices like that. So if it was 1 about money, 2, if it was about just if money didn't matter and it was a passion, like I just wanted to do it. And 3 is if I wanted to really be passionate about, having a good career but going in and do a topic, a content that I love.
Okay.
So all of 3, which are important to me, to be honest. So first for the money and for the future, I would totally go work for OpenAI or one of the whatever I thought AI startup was having the most. And I'm not going to name them just because that'll sort of unbiased.
But in the AI industry.
But there are a couple of AI startups that I think are amazing and that the executives I think really get it. The obvious one is OpenAI because I think Sam Altman is thoughtful and I think the company is thoughtful and I think I think it's just going to be a very interesting business overall. I think there's a pivot coming for that business, by the way. Interesting. So that would be my money one. My one for content, but not dissimilar from you, I would go work for the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, because I would go work in marketing for the Dallas Cowboys. Because
I'd be working at the Browns and you'd be working at the Cowboys.
I would get out of bed every day excited about the content and what I'm marketing there. Because I love football. I absolutely adore and love football. I'm passionate about it. I love every detail of it. So it would be, I think, fun. From what I've heard, it's a great place to work. And so it's, that would be the high on that. If money weren't a thing and I was just wanting to have a lifestyle and money didn't matter, I would totally go be a college professor. That would be and in fact, that would be my first choice. Unfortunately, money plays a big role in that, but I would totally go be a college professor.
But I think what's interesting about the college professor angle today is you can be a college professor and do lots of other things as well. Like Prof G is a really good example.
Yes.
Professor Scott Galloway is an NYU Stern professor and is a multimillionaire.
That's right. That's one of the reasons he can be an NYU Stern professor is because he is a multimillionaire. That's the freedom to be able to do that. I mean, I have looked at this as the adjunct professor, unfortunately, universities operate a little bit ass backwards when it comes to how they pull in adjunct professors, and teachers. So it's more difficult than it needs to be. I think in many ways there are more hoops to jump through than needs to be. And there's a whole rant we could go on about that, but that's, I would love to do that. I mean, I would love to spend my time on campus and teaching kids and really, and business and marketing, by the way, that would be my topic. I would love to teach them about business, modern marketing, basically.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you got a couple more years till then marketing goes away and AI takes over, and then we're not needed anymore.
Right, there is that. There is absolutely there. That's very
that was fun.
That was totally fun. That was absolutely fun.
I guess. Oh, so if we missed your question, we'll do this again. But go to our YouTube channel at This Old Marketing and put your question in below so we can add it to the list and we'll get to it in the next. Because I think we're going to have another. I'm pretty sure there's going to be another special episode in the next month and a half.
I would guess so. Yeah,
with our travels and content marketing world and a bunch of other stuff.
That's true. So yeah, that is true.
We're going to have to figure something out. So.
That is true. Yeah. And did you want to give a thank out or shout out?
Oh, yes. Thank you. There's so many people we couldn't get. So there's questions. I'm here on the LinkedIn site. They're still coming. So Craig Hodges and Matthew Cantwell, thank you for your question. And Peter Breck, of course, Peter always. Evelyn Hoover, thank you. Ash Roy, Ahaba Liebtag had a great question we couldn't get to. Brian Piper, Mary Rose McGuire, Brian Undraco, Robert Katai, lots of Karen Abu. Erica Heald, oh my God. Eric Papson, Todd McCluskey. Of course, Todd's been sending all kinds of stuff to us. Joshua Feinberg, thank you so much for all that. I wish we could get to yours, and we will hopefully do another episode and get, because even the ones that came in today that we weren't able to get to are really, really good. And they're not all about me. There are some that say Joe and Robert, not just Joe and Robert.
Few. Yeah, exceedingly few.
So,
yes. There is that.
Good deal.
Fantastic. All right. Well, we will be back next week with a regular news-oriented episode, as they say. But until then, until we get to our next week's show, and Joe comes back from Nantucket all tanned and bicycled up and all Martha Stewarted ready for cooking, we will see you next week. And until then, please do remember, it is your story to tell. Tell it well. We'll see you next week on, This Old Marketing.